All right, in this video, I'm going to show you the fundamentals of the pen tool. Not this pen tool, but this pen tool. This is a tutorial that's really geared to absolute beginners in Illustrator, but anyone, of course, if you want to refresh your knowledge of the pen tool and the direct selection tool, is welcome to join us. Here we go. All right, so we're going to take a look at some of the fundamentals of the pen tool and the white arrow, the direct selection tool. These are like the basic building block tools of Illustrator. So if you want to do any kind of illustration, any kind of image creation, logo building, etc., knowing how to use the pen tool and especially knowing how to use the direct selection tool is the most important thing. So this video is going to be the very, very, very basic understanding of how these tools work and how to make some basic shapes. And then we'll have some more intermediate or advanced tutorials for how to use the pen tool. So the first thing we're going to start off with is the pen tool. The pen tool looks like a kind of a classic ink pen. The icon is what was referred to as a nib. And the keyboard shortcut is P to get there, or you can just click on this icon on your toolbar. And I'm going to bring it on the screen. You're going to see that it has that pen tool shape and a little asterisk next to it, which means that you can just create something. So this first demonstration is just going to be how to create some points on the screen. Now, Illustrator uses the terminology anchor point to refer to the points that we're drawing. Point is essentially just a shortcut. And you do that just by clicking on the screen. And you can see that when I click on the screen, there's a little solid blue dot. And then as I drag my cursor around on the screen, I haven't clicked anywhere else, it's giving me a preview of what that line is going to look like. That line or line segment, as Illustrator refers to it, is going to look like as I drag it, as like where I would place a new point. So I'm going to place a point here. And now I have two anchor points and I have a line segment. And I'm just going to draw a little zigzag line. And go ahead, you should do this as well, just to get used to this if you've never done this before. All right. Now, to stop drawing, I can do a couple of different things. Easiest thing is just to hit escape on your keyboard. You can select another tool. If you want to stop and deselect everything, you can Control-Shift-A or Command-Shift-A on your keyboard to do that as well. So now what I have is a series of anchor points, and you can see that as I hover over these points, Illustrator is giving me a little tip to say, hey, you're on an anchor point. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 anchor points, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 line segments. All right, so as I click on this, you can see that all the points are solid blue, and that essentially means that they're all selected. So I took my black arrow and I can now move this around on the screen. Now, working hand in hand with the pen tool is the direct selection tool, or the white arrow. And this is the most, I think, the most fundamental editing tool that you have in Illustrator. So let's talk about how this works. I'm going to take my black arrow and just click out on the screen and somewhere other than this line segment. And what that will do is just essentially deselect as well. Now if I take my white arrow, the direct selection tool, keyboard shortcut A, and I click on one of these anchor points, I have now activated it, and it allows me to edit, meaning I can change the location on the screen as to where that anchor point is. So I can just click through all of these points and begin modifying the overall shape of this line segment that I've created, or this path that I've created. So something that I want you to pay attention to is that if it's blue, it's editable, and if it's white with a blue outline, it is not editable, meaning that if I click on just this point, only this point is going to move. Now, when I clicked on this earlier with the black arrow, and I'll do it again, all of the anchor points were solid blue, which allowed me to move the entire shape. Right? But just the anchor point will be moved, like one solid anchor point will be moved with the white arrow. So you just click and move this around on the screen. All right, so now that we have the basics down of what an anchor point is, and a line segment is drawn in between these anchor points, another piece of terminology which I said before, but this entire thing that I've drawn is considered a path, meaning that it's this combination of anchor points and line segments. Now this is referred to as an open path, meaning that there's an open point here and an open point here. They're not connected. All right, so what I'm going to do now is show you how to create a closed path. I'm going to do the same thing with the pen tool. I'm just going to click and create an anchor point and click up and down and up and down and up and down. And I'm going to eventually come back to where I started. Now something that I want you to pay attention to is that as I get to this anchor point, the original anchor point, as I hover over it, the anchor point gets larger, Illustrator shows me the word anchor, and the pen tool changes. It now has a circle at its bottom right, and what that means is that it's going to create a closed path. So that is now a closed path. There's really no beginning or end of this path. We know where it started, obviously, but as Illustrator sees it, there's no beginning or end. Now another thing that I want to demonstrate is another property of an open or closed path. Right now, my path has no fill, meaning that the fill of the path is none. It has a red stripe through it. But if I give this a fill color, let's say yellow, what Illustrator is going to do is it's going to just attempt to fill in this shape from the beginning point to the end point. So as I move these anchor points around, it's still going to create this straight line between our beginning point and our end point. And that kind of indicates to you that this is an open path. Now if I do the same thing to the closed path that I just made, and I give that a fill, now that is that fill is contained within this shape. All right, so, and I can just modify these points, and I can, make an interesting shape from this. I want to just demonstrate a couple more things for using the pen tool and using the direct selection tool and how to modify this shape. If I want to delete some points from this shape, I can take my pen tool and hover over one of these points, and you're going to now see that the pen tool changes again with a little minus sign next to it. And what that means is that if I click on that point, I can now delete that point from this path. And I can just go through and start deleting as many points as I'd like. Make sure that you're kind of hovering over a point in order for this to work. If I want to add a point, I can hover over this line segment. Remember, the line segment is the line between two anchor points, and you'll now see that the cursor changes, so there's a plus sign next to it. And if I click on that, I can add that anchor point. Click here, add an anchor point here, and then take my white arrow and modify the location of these anchor points. All right, so this is the very foundation of using the pen tool and the white arrow. And in our next tutorial, we're going to look at creating curves with the pen tool. All right, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe and like, and we'll see you in the next video.